Hello and thank you for joining us for this week's track guide around Spa for Daily Race C. I'm JB Racing and I'm here in association with Kireth Esports to give you this track guide for this week's Daily Race C. Once again, we are in the Peugeot RCZ. It looks like it's going to be the OP car, but you can also jump in the McLaren if you want something a little bit different. You're bored of driving the Peugeot by now, which 3 weeks back to back I imagine you might be. Jump in the McLaren for something a little bit different, or anything that's really going to be good on fuel. So if you enjoy driving a car, it's stable and you can manage the fuel well, that is definitely going to be important. This is 8 laps and the strategy seems to be a little bit of fuel saving just to make your pit stop a bit shorter, but not changing tyres. So it's going to be a really interesting one. If you do change tyres, obviously you can push that a little bit more in the second half of the race, but it is only 8 laps, so definitely not changing tyres seems to be able to work. But you do need to keep an eye on your fuel because you haven't got anywhere near enough to make it to the end. I bet there'll be somebody trying to make it a no stop, but I certainly haven't been able to make it work on the races that I've tried. So managed to get a good lap time here. We're going to go in and break the corners down for you and then play the lap out in full speed as always. If you do enjoy the lap guide, then please do drop a like and consider subscribing, and head over to JB Racing on YouTube if you're watching this on Kireth's channel, and you'll see my channel for a bit more GT7 content. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here we go for the start of the lap then, and it's important to exit the chicane in second gear so you can get good acceleration coming up to the first braking point. Speaking of which, first braking marker is just after the 100 metre board, so sort of somewhere in between the 100 and the 50. We're going to come down to first gear to get the car to turn in, clip a little bit of this curb on the inside, but then shift a second for the acceleration, and that will give you a much better launch and less chance of losing the back end as you exit corner 1. Something to bear in mind with this car is that you want to rev the gears out as far as you can and never use 6th gear, so watch out for that. And now coming up to Eau Rouge, we're going to cut a little bit of this curb here on the left hand side and then turn in very gently for the first half there. You don't want to use too much steering angle because you're going to risk spinning the car and unsettling it, so just a very gentle turn in and that will get you through there nicely. As I say, staying in 5th and revving the car out. During the race you're probably going to want to short shift a little bit more and use a bit of 6th gear just to save some fuel, but definitely not during quali. For this next corner we're braking just after the start of the curb, and we're going to come down to 3rd initially, but then 2nd gear to help turn the car in. Little burst of power in between the right and the left hand part of the chicane here, but then shift into 3rd as you feed the power in. Come all the way out to the left here until you almost touch this curb, and then just lift and coast, no brake needed for this corner, and you can get back on the power pretty soon and use this curb on the left as runoff. Now for this downhill right hander that we're coming up to, we're going to brake just after the start of the curb. Again, down to 3rd initially, but then do use 2nd gear to help rotate the car. Don't worry if the car slides a little bit, it may well do when you're coming down here, but just wait for the grip to come back and then feed the power in 2nd initially, but then shifting up to 3rd for the middle part of this corner. Just a tiny dab of brake needed just before the signal box on your right there, and let the car turn in, and then again you can get on the power pretty early coming down the hill here. This next left-hander can be a bit of a tricky one, but we're going to be looking out for the 50 metre board. Keep the car in 5th, put a little bit of brake down, and then shift down to 4th once you feel the car start turning in. You don't want to downshift too early there because you are going to again unsettle the car and risk losing the back end. Once you're in 4th gear you can feed the power in really confidently, and you can run out to the right here a little bit more. I cut it off a little bit narrow, which probably cost me a little bit of time there. Braking here just on the start of the red and white curb, once again down to 3rd initially, but then using 2nd gear to help rotate the car around. Bit of a burst of power in 2nd, but then shift into 3rd and then just lift for the left-hander, so no brake required, just a little lift. You see I don't even take my foot fully off the power there, and then back on the power, and you can use this curb on the right for runoff. Bit of brake and down to 3rd, no need for 2nd gear here, just keep the car in 3rd, clip this curb on your right hand side and get the power in nice and early. Now an important corner here to get a good exit on, we're going to shift up into 4th and then just a tiny lift to help the car turn in, and then back on the power. So you see I only lift off about 25% or so on the throttle just to let the car turn, and then get straight back on the accelerator. It's going to be really important to get a good run here as it is a long straight down the back. Now for this left-hander you can use the sort of turquoise runoff on your right, but make sure your left tyres don't cross that white line. No need to lift, but do turn in gently. So just like when you're going through Eau Rouge, you want to turn in nice and gently there so that you don't unsettle the car. And brake in about a car's length after the 150 metre board there. I downshift into 1st a little bit early here. You can leave it a bit later to get into 1st gear, but clip the right hand side of the first part of the bus stop, keep it in 1st through the middle, but then shift to 2nd as you get on the power. As you see there, I'm getting on the power just before the apex of the left hand part of the bus stop, and then you can be on the accelerator nice and early to get a good run across the line. That was good enough for a 2:18.696, so I hope that gives you guys and girls some good tips to get a good quality time in. Look out for the fuel saving strategy in the race, and it's going to take a couple to get used to it. but we'll leave you with the lap to play out at full speed here. Please do drop a like and comment if you've enjoyed the video, and we'll look forward to seeing you for some races in the week. Thanks very much.